As we plant terrariums, we could create many different styles based on our plant selection. For example, you might use a mixture of succulents to create more of a desert scene. Perhaps you use ferns and ivy and mondo to create a woodland setting. And of course, there's a great variety of tropical plants to lend a more tropical theme. There's a few things we want to consider as we're selecting plants. First, we want to think about our container. If we're going to be using desert style plants, we want to use an open container so that it's not as humid of an environment. However, a lot of our tropical plants require that closed container to keep the environment a bit more humid. Another thing we want to think about is where we're intending to place the terrarium in the house, because this will affect the light levels and temperature inside the terrarium, which of course affects the plants. So most of our terrarium plants, particularly the tropicals, need a moderate light level. So we'll want to put the terrarium near a window, but not directly in the window. If we put a closed terrarium in direct sunlight, the temperatures inside here will get exceptionally high and kill our plants. Now, an open terrarium with succulents can be placed in direct sunlight. Okay, so let's look at some of the plants. I like to think on the ground level first, and a number of our landscape plants like sedums and creeping jenny, even dwarf mondo, make a really nice ground cover inside the terrarium. What I really like to use for ground cover are mosses because they have such unique textures. There's many different varieties available. They also take the conditions inside the terrarium very well. We can also use lichen. There's a lot of different types of lichen, which again give us many different textures and colors to choose from. For the plants in our terrariums, there's so many different options available. What I like to look for are a variety of forms, textures, and colors. And here I have a couple of different Rex begonias that give us a lot of variety when it comes to foliage color. In front of this one is a waffle plant. Great texture, and that nice deep purple can help create depth in our planting. The arrow plant has a nicely shaped leaf that's very unique compared to other plants, and we also have different sized foliage and different color foliage to choose from. Another great plant for color is Photonia. Here I have a pink variety. This one has the red veins. We also have just a white veined variety planted in here. And this one is with one of my favorite plants. That's the purple passion plant. I remember having one of these on my windowsill as a child. It was my favorite plant because it was so soft and furry. I also like to consider some taller plants for the backdrop, and ivies make a great choice. We can have solid green. There's also white or yellow variegated. And of course, ferns are great for a backdrop. They provide that solid for all these colors to play off of. When we're selecting plants, we want to make sure that we use plants with the same requirements. We don't want to mix dry-loving plants with moisture-loving plants in the same environment. Otherwise, one is obviously going to suffer. We also want to look for plants that are fairly slow-growing and have a compact habit so that they don't outgrow the terrarium. Of course, you could come in and prune them occasionally, and likely will need to replant the terrarium after a few years as the plants outgrow their environment. One last thing as we're selecting plants for the terrarium is not to get too carried away. We don't want to overcrowd the plants because they're certainly going to keep on growing.